Today, we're delving into a profound book titled Toxic Parents by the internationally renowned psychotherapist Susan Forward and co-author Craig Buck, a film producer and human behavior expert. This book offers invaluable insights into comprehensive self-development. We often say that personality determines destiny, but the challenge lies in understanding what shapes our personality. An old saying goes, "Parents give birth, but children go astray." Is this truly the case, or is it merely a lament when children don't turn out as expected? What truly forms our character? A person's personality is primarily shaped by two factors: innate predisposition and environment. The innate part comes from your genetic inheritance, but the environment is the most crucial factor. The family, a small social unit consisting of parents and children, is the first environment each person experiences after birth and throughout their upbringing. It's the place with the greatest influence on a person's life. As children, we initially lack the ability to think and judge. By nature, we possess an absolute trust in our parents. Therefore, we can only accept all their reactions, and this becomes the sole standard by which we judge right and wrong in our own actions. When guests arrive, we see our parents stand up, so we rush to stand up too, politely greeting them. After the guests leave, our parents start gossiping and criticizing them. Thus, we learn that we can also speak ill of others behind their backs. When our parents yell and scold a restaurant server, we naturally don't learn to respect those who perform manual labor. As we grow up and enter society, we begin to establish diverse relationships. Yet, this is also the moment when problems stemming from habits and personality traits, influenced by our parents since childhood, continue to damage our entire lives, especially our intimate relationships. You'll find that some among us, no matter who they are with, never feel secure. Others always occupy a subservient position in a relationship, constantly trying to please and grovel for validation from their partner. Some are perpetually demanding, only knowing how to receive without giving. Or, even worse, some always feel stifled by their long-term companions, trapped in a conflict where they simultaneously want to escape and continue the relationship. In the process of integrating into society, we suddenly discover numerous personality flaws we need to address and improve. We start attending classes on effective communication, self-discipline, behavior modification, and learning to let go to move on to new relationships. But these are all just temporary remedies that can't get to the root of the problem. Similar situations keep repeating, and even if we appear harmonious on the surface, deep down, we are truly unhappy. Faced with this predicament, Dr. Susan Forward recognized the core of the problem. The reason you struggle to build and maintain relationships doesn't lie within you, but rather stems from the influence of your own parents, those who raised you from childhood, growing up with you, and shaping you. Susan Forward was the first to coin the term toxic parents to refer to parents who inflict profound difficulties on their children. The children living under such negative shadows are poisoned children. In this book, the author helps us understand what constitutes a toxic parent, analyzes the root causes of all your personality flaws, and provides ways to overcome them. If you are in a toxic family, I hope this deeply healing book can enhance your self-awareness and help you save yourself. I also hope that through reading this book, adults who are parents or will become parents can recognize their own issues and minimize harm to their children from the root. As Alfred Adler, the founder of individual psychology, once famously said, "The happy people spend their whole lives healed by their childhood, while the unhappy ones spend their whole lives healing their childhood." This topic is a continuation of the theme that many of you have written to me about, expressing interest in learning more, healing your inner child. So now, I invite you to listen to the most essential insights from this book. What exactly defines a toxic parent? It's a fact that parents are often first-time parents themselves. They will inevitably have shortcomings. There will be times when they lose their temper, yell at their children, or unintentionally utter hurtful words. However, if they possess sufficient love and understanding in normal circumstances, most children can still forgive them. Yet, many parents exhibit persistently negative behaviors that dominate their children's lives. These harms spread like a chemical poison, continuously damaging the physical and mental well-being of their children. Moreover, that pain will continue to scar them as they grow up. Toxic precisely describes parents who frequently belittle, hurt, and even abuse their children, even into adulthood. Unfortunately, most parents exhibit certain toxic tendencies. They have their own logic for brazenly manipulating their children. The main reason parents harm their children is often because they themselves were victims of toxicity in their own families. They never learned how to be parents before embarking on raising their children, and their parenting methods are largely passed down from generation to generation. This is no different from a kind of hereditary poison, containing harmful ideologies disguised as proper methods. If you do not arm yourself with understanding and awaken your awareness, you are very likely to continue this hereditary poison. However, judging whether your parents are toxic is not simple. Even when our relationship with our parents is strained, we often don't know if we are being abused or if we are simply too sensitive. To answer this question, Dr. Susan Forward outlines 7 types of toxic behaviors in families to help you recognize them. Please awaken. Parents are not everything in the world. Dr. Susan Forward once shared a case brought to her for therapy. A beautiful young woman named Randy worked as a floral designer in a renowned shop. In the eyes of others, Randy had a smoother and happier life than most people. However, this was only on the surface. Randy and her husband had been trying to conceive for 2 years but hadn't succeeded. She was unhappy with her husband, but what truly compelled her to seek a therapist wasn't this, but a story involving her mother. Randy confided in her mother about her sadness and depression over not being able to conceive, but her mother replied, "Not being able to get pregnant is punishment. God is punishing you." Why would her mother say such a thing? It was because in high school, Randy had an early relationship which enraged her father. He scolded her, even calling her a slut. When she went out with boys, her father would taunt her, saying she'd go to hell sooner or later. Randy felt uncomfortable and angry. The stubbornness of adolescence led her to have sex with a boy, seeing it as an act of defiance against her parents. This time, she got pregnant. Her whole family went frantic. Ultimately, Randy had no choice but to have an abortion. This act made her feel utterly ashamed, and she tried to amend her ways. However, from then on, her parents never missed an opportunity to bring up the past, constantly scolding and taunting her, calling her inferior and reminding her of how much she had disgraced them. Despite this treatment, Randy still told the doctor, "I can't blame them. After all, I was wrong first. They had high hopes for me, but I made a mistake that disappointed them so much. So now, I just want to make amends with them and listen to everything they say. My husband has been very hurt, and we've had many arguments about this, but I have to do it. I just hope my parents forgive me." I believe many of you feel both pity and anger, because she suffered such harm from her parents yet tried to excuse them. Why could Randy fall so deeply into such pain? It's because she was poisoned by her parents' denial. In a family where parents constantly accuse and criticize their children, over time, the children accept this denial, and it then deeply embeds itself in their psyche, weakening their belief in themselves and their ability to perceive reality. This makes rebuilding self-esteem and developing healthy self-confidence and courage to face life's challenges incredibly difficult. At this point, reflect. Have you ever told yourself, "My father hit me, but he didn't really mean to hurt me. He just wanted to punish me." Or, "My mother didn't have time to care for me because her own life was unhappy." If you constantly try to rationalize unacceptable things into acceptable ones, please be careful. This shows that you are allowing your parents' toxic influence to permeate your beliefs, convincing yourself that your parents are everything, that they are above all. First, you must recognize that parents cannot be perfect. Trying to excuse them is merely a facade to cover your wounds. It cannot truly heal you. Parents may not intend to be toxic, but that doesn't mean their actions aren't poisonous. The second type of toxicity is inadequate parenting. There was a 34-year-old man named Lace who sought out Dr. Susan because of problems in his relationships. Both his ex-wife and new girlfriend left him for the same reason. He was boring and lived like a robot. Lace's life was consumed by work. Even on weekends, he brought work home. If he conversed, it would only be for a few sentences before he'd steer the topic back to work. He even confessed that he himself found nothing interesting about himself. Dr. Susan then asked, "Why do you feel distressed by this, yet you are still so obsessed with work?" Lace explained that he only felt satisfied when he did well at work. This state truly stemmed from his childhood. Lace's family had 3 children, and he was the eldest. When he was 8, his mother suffered from a nervous breakdown, and his father was frequently away on business trips. Young Lace found it perplexing that whenever his father came home, he would just sleep in the living room. His mother was often sad, lying in bed all day watching TV with a remote in her hand. The room was always dark and stuffy. From a young age, Lace had to act like a small adult, caring for his 2 younger siblings and also serving as his mother's emotional support. Each morning, before leaving for work, his father would tell Lace to find a way to make your mother happy. Young Lace tried to cheer his mother up, but no matter what he did, she remained the same. Lace fell into a chaotic state of role reversal. He believed he wasn't doing enough, which led to his failure and subsequently a sense of inferiority. Thus, as an adult, he became trapped in a compulsive need to work. Work was the only thing that satisfied 2 needs. First, it helped him avoid confronting the loneliness and emotional deprivation from his childhood. Second, it reinforced the belief that he had to do enough to avoid the feeling of failure and inadequacy. Indeed, in life, there are many such parents who fail to fulfill their responsibilities but have 1,000 reasons they deem legitimate. They use excuses like, "I don't have enough time to care for, be with, and raise my children from a young age because I have to earn money to support the family," or "I'm not well." Some even think, "You're the eldest, so you must help your parents take care of your siblings. As an older sibling, you must sacrifice for them," and so on. This type of toxic parent is precisely a self-centered individual. They focus almost all their energy on themselves, sending a clear message to their children: how you feel doesn't matter, only mom and dad matter most. These selfish thoughts truly bring immense harm to children, lasting well into adulthood. The third type of toxic parent is *** manipulative and controlling parents ***. This is perhaps the most common. Their catchphrase is always, "We're doing this all for your own good." Faced with their parents' opposition or dictates, children often wonder, "Why can't I live my own life?" First, we need to understand the logic behind this type of parental thinking. Most of them believe that because they are older and have experienced more in life, they have a responsibility to decide what career path their children pursue, what job they find, who they love, and who they marry. In reality, both parents and children often share at least 2 common desires. First, they hope for a better life. And second, even rebellious children admit they are willing to listen to their parents' opinions. But why do conflicts and even arguments constantly arise between them? Many believe the reason is that children and parents have different interpretations of what a good life means, and parents always impose their own interpretation on their children. This reason is valid, but it doesn't delve deeply enough into the root of the problem. In fact, many parents are willing to concede the point that a good life should be one that the individual desires. They genuinely understand that their children would be happier living the way they want. But why do they still force them to follow their own will? The answer lies in the selfishness and deep-seated fear within these manipulative parents. In truth, these individuals want to use every means to keep their children close and control them within their predictable sphere. "For your own good" is merely an excuse. These parents, having not received good things from their own upbringing, accumulate much dissatisfaction with life over time. From this, they fall into a fear of abandonment. Their children's independence makes them feel as if they are losing a part of themselves. They need their children to depend on them forever. This is like an innate need. Therefore, they do not hesitate to use every method to prevent their children from developing independence. The closest people can be the most harmful. In this section, I will introduce 4 other types of toxic parents: alcoholic parents, verbally abusive parents, physically abusive parents, and sexually abusive parents. Through this analysis, you will clearly see one thing: the people who can harm you the most are often those closest to you. First, there are ** alcoholic parents **. For families with an alcoholic, the way to escape fear is to turn a blind eye. This type of disguise forces children to lie, making them believe that alcoholism is shameful, and all family members wear the mask of "everything is fine" to present to the outside world. This shared secret becomes the glue that keeps the family intact. In reality, pretending to be a normal family is most damaging to the children. Children of alcoholic parents will always feel, "I need to be responsible for my family, and I must take care of their emotions." Therefore, the child is not allowed to express emotions like normal children. This causes them to deny the validity of their feelings and perceptions. As adults, they will struggle to form self-confidence and tend to avoid social groups, thereby fearing loneliness. Parents in alcoholic families also lack love for their children. Furthermore, a child's unmet needs can lead to insecurity and suppressed anger. The next type of toxic parent is verbally abusive parents. There are parents who constantly scold and insult their children. These behaviors are hidden under the mask of, "I am teaching my child." However, these verbal abuses can very well become self-fulfilling prophecies. Children who are constantly told they are stupid, spoiled, or lazy will be unable to develop a normal self-concept. They will actually do things to confirm that their parents' long-held assessments were not wrong. Some parents scold their children simply because they are used to using others' shortcomings to highlight their own abilities. Other parents scold their children because they pursue perfection and demand their children be perfect according to their desires. Additionally, among the types of toxic parents, the next two are the most damaging and harmful to children: physically abusive parents and sexually abusive parents. It is a fact that parents who hit their children do so not because of the child's bad behavior, but often because they themselves are overly tired, stressed, and anxious. These types of parents often find it difficult to control their impulses. When negative emotions arise, they want to explode, hitting, abusing, and attacking their children mercilessly, without being aware of their actions. Most parents who physically abuse children grew up with severe emotional deficits and unmet needs. They too had abusive parents, and they turn around and abuse their own children. This is the hereditary poison passed down from generation to generation, much like the deeply ingrained belief for many: spare the rod, spoil the child. Violence is the only way these types of people learn to solve problems in their violent, toxic families. Children in such environments constantly lack trust and security. They are treated like punching bags, serving as substitutes to vent their parents' negative emotions. One of the biggest impacts physical abuse can have on children is that they learn to hate themselves. This can lead to profound self-loathing, believing that everything is their fault. When parents hit children, children are capable of abandoning themselves because of it, and may even develop hatred for others and for themselves. At this point, the violence learned from parents becomes the only way for them to express dissatisfaction. The final type of toxic parent, and the most terrifying, is sexual abuse. This is an act of incest, a betrayal of the most fundamental trust between children and parents. Because children are vulnerable victims, completely dependent on the perpetrator, they don't know how to escape or whom to ask for help. The very people who should protect them become their tormentors, and the family becomes an iron cage trapping dark secrets. From a psychological perspective, incest encompasses many behaviors, such as direct sexual relations with a blood relative or oral sexual acts aimed at arousing the abuser's sexual interest. The abuser includes biological parents or someone the child perceives as a family member, such as a stepfather, stepmother, or relatives. Besides, there are also some incestuous behaviors that, while not involving physical contact with children, can still cause immense harm. For example, the abuser intentionally exposes themselves or tries to convince the child to take provocative pictures. There are also many more subtle behaviors that make children feel their privacy and safety are violated, such as secretly filming children bathing, teasing them with obscene words, or showing children pornographic content. Incest is a crime, but why do parents commit incest with their children? In reality, this is also due to the uncontrollable impulses and strong desire for manipulation of toxic parents. They often use various violent and abusive tactics to threat and coerce children into complying to satisfy their own aims. Under the shame of being violated, children can only choose to remain silent. The consequence is that children experience tremendous self-blame, leading to strong self-loathing. The harm of this poison is similar to that of alcoholic parents, but it is far, far more severe. Children who grow up in such families develop a strong psychological barrier with society and those around them. Children will not only lose the capacity for love, but also exhibit negative physical reactions, or develop sexual addiction, or intensely detest sexual acts. This prevents them from living normal lives as adults, ultimately leading to severe breakdowns. So, how do we overcome personality flaws caused by toxic parents? The first step is to recognize if you yourself are poisoned. Recognizing toxic parents is one thing, but recognizing if you are poisoned is equally crucial. This is because poisoned children are deeply affected by their parents. Over time, certain beliefs become deeply ingrained in their subconscious. Furthermore, due to the need for parental approval and affirmation, they create a blindfold for themselves, preventing them from truly seeing themselves and living according to their own desires. Since feelings and behaviors are dominated by these beliefs, here are 16 common beliefs. If you identify with more than 4 of them, it means you are poisoned and have unresolved issues in your relationship with your parents. 1. I am responsible for making my parents happy. 2. I am responsible for making my parents proud. 3. I am everything to my parents. 4. My parents cannot live without me. 5. I cannot live without my parents. 6. If I tell my parents the truth about my divorce, abortion, etc., it would be like killing them. 7. If I defy my parents, I will lose them forever. 8. If I tell my parents how much they hurt me, they will never speak to me again. 9. I should not say or do anything that would upset my parents. 10. My parents' feelings are more important than mine. 11. Talking openly with my parents is useless. It won't lead to good results. 12. If my parents change, I will feel good about myself. 13. I must atone for being a bad child and make it up to my parents. 14. If I show my parents how much they hurt me, I know they will change. 15. No matter what I do, they are still my parents, and I must respect them. 16. My parents have absolutely no control over my life, because I always defy them. The most difficult thing is that all these thoughts are self-sabotaging, preventing you from becoming an independent person. Therefore, if you want to live the life you desire, you first need to resist these ideas. Next, Dr. Susan Forward emphasized an extremely important principle. The poisoned child must not fall into the *** forgiveness trap ***. In popular self-help books, authors often advocate that children should forgive their parents. Of course, compassion is a valuable quality, and it demonstrates a truly strong inner self. You can choose to forgive your parents, but this forgiveness must be based on a key condition. You have fully processed and mastered all your emotions and resolved all internal conflicts, rather than simply feigning generosity when you haven't truly let go. For example, Stephanie, one of Susan's patients, was raped by her father as a child. She firmly believed in the power of forgiveness. She felt that she could forgive without expressing anger and that this could heal her wounds. But Dr. Susan discovered that the underlying factor of her forgiveness was actually religious belief, not a genuine desire. Because of this, Stephanie, like many other children, fell into the forgiveness trap. She was merely suppressing her anger and suffering increasingly severe harm. When faced with what has happened to us, we first need to express our anger appropriately. We need to grieve the fact that we never received true love from our parents. We should not be weak-willed and erase the existing wounds. The kind of forgiveness that pretends nothing happened is not true forgiveness, nor does it bring about healing. Dr. Susan also believes that true forgiveness is possible, but there's a prerequisite. Your parents must recognize the toxicity within them and begin to acknowledge their mistakes. Only when parents realize their wrongs and sincerely wish for their children's forgiveness does your compassion hold meaning. If parents refuse to admit their mistakes and instead blame their children for everything, then no matter how much you forgive them, it will be futile. The third point is *** non-defensive release ***. This means you need to confront your own problems and those of your family. Perhaps the most difficult start is talking to toxic parents, because toxic parents will typically deny responsibility and blame you. But you will tend to fall into defensiveness or anger and walk away, refusing to communicate. For example, if you are called ungrateful, you will certainly be displeased and retort, "I always think of you. I tried my best, but no matter what I do, you're never satisfied." Pay attention. This self-defense is also a disguised form of defense, because you are trying to prove yourself to be obedient and dutiful to your parents. As long as you still crave their approval, you will not be able to free yourself from that toxic control. On this matter, Dr. Susan provides us with the following answers. If toxic parents are angry, flared up, and insistent on their own views, you can objectively say, "Oh, I understand." Of course, you have the right to assert your opinion. And when they start controlling your emotions and stopping you from expressing your view further, you can say, "I'm sorry you disagree with this, but this is my opinion." If the other person loses emotional control or expresses intense anger, you can reply, "I'm sorry I disappointed you, but that's the truth." This approach requires complete calm on your part to help you draw a clear boundary, so your parents recognize their responsibility for their toxic wrongs. If the argument is laced with anger and hurt within you, your pain will never end. Additionally, to apply a non-defensive response, you need to have a clear stance. You need to clearly define and tell your parents what you value, what you can and cannot do, and what you can and cannot discuss. Such words not only allow you to clarify your position, but also let your parents know what your bottom line is. After that, you need to stick to this position to the very end and not entertain thoughts like, "I can't refuse my parents because it might break up the family relationship." Once you have this thought, you lose your right to choose and your control over your own life. And point number 5, stop self-punishment ***. For poisoned children, they are very prone to self-blame, believing that their parents harmed them because they were not good students, were incompetent, liked to play too much, didn't do well, etc. From that, they carry a psychological burden. But you need to remember that the truth is, this toxicity was not caused by you in the first place. It is not your fault, and please stop all self-reproach and remorse that punishes yourself. On this issue, Dr. Susan shares some methods to help you release the burden in your heart. First, you must find a private, quiet time and place to talk to your inner child. Then, you can take a piece of paper and write down the things your parents did that hurt you, and you can also recount other painful experiences that made you blame yourself. Finally, read this content carefully and identify the person truly responsible for your wounds. If the person responsible is your parent, you can tell yourself, "My parents are responsible for these things. It's not my fault. They hurt me." This method initially only stays at the level of cognitive recognition, but gradually, you can understand that those things were not your fault. Perhaps at this moment, the child within you still feels a heavy sense of guilt, but as you continue to practice and feel, you will gradually adapt to this new awareness, thereby freeing yourself from psychological burden. For this part, you can read and listen to the summary video of Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Monk and the 5-Year-Old, to use mindfulness to heal your inner child. Finally, confrontation ***. After careful consideration and completing these preliminary preparations, the author suggests it's time to bravely confront your parents through a direct conversation. This is a necessary step to escape the shadow of a toxic family. This may be the most terrifying step, but it will also forge the greatest strength within your inner self. First, you must calmly and firmly talk to your parents about the things you cannot tolerate from them, whether current or things that happened in your childhood. You must tell them how these things have affected your life and your current relationships. Clearly define what they hurt in you and create new ground rules for this home. The purpose of confronting your parents is not to retaliate, punish, or vent your anger on them, or to seek material compensation. Rather, it is the only path to reestablish your relationship and your psychological well-being for the rest of your life. During this process, you need to be mentally prepared for unexpected outbursts. They might not remember the things you bring up, or they might even accuse and insult you more. No matter what happens after this confrontation, even if you ultimately achieve no results, even if you don't complete your desired goals, even if you start defending yourself in panic, even if your parents stand up and leave in anger, your courageous act of confronting them has already constituted a victory in navigating the ship of your life. The Buddha said that no one else, only you, is the master of your own life, because you have confessed the truth to yourself and to your parents. That is tremendous courage. Only in this way will you no longer be controlled by your parents, and you will no longer be burdened by the painful emotions they inflicted upon you. But you must be careful when confronting them, because the people who were supposed to nurture and love you might turn against you and try to emotionally destroy you when you gather the courage to speak the truth. Therefore, before confronting, you need to prepare for things. First, you must have a solid support system for your emotions and your livelihood, meaning you can live independently and control your emotions. Second, you must practice many times beforehand. Third, you must change your beliefs and reaffirm who is responsible for the cause of the harm. Fourth, you must be fully prepared because your relationship with your parents will undergo major changes, possibly even ending. Finally, after all, if unexpected situations arise during the confrontation, such as you cannot control your emotions or the other party displays violent gestures, etc., do not hesitate. Proactively seek help. For example, finding a professional therapist would be the best choice. And finally, an equally important part is to bravely heal yourself and stop the transmission of this poison across generations. Many poisoned children eventually become parents themselves. For a child who was hurt by a toxic family, becoming a qualified parent is not easy, because for them, love in the family is intertwined with injury and insult. They don't know what true love is. In such circumstances, it is very difficult for them to establish their own families and raise their children well, so they might unknowingly harm their children again. The toxic experience may have cast a dark shadow over your childhood, but you need to believe that you can protect your children from that toxicity and break the vicious cycle of hereditary poison from one generation to the next. One of the most effective ways is to make a commitment. Commit that you have fully accepted the truth that you were a hurt, manipulated, and abused child, and that your parents are responsible for that. They cannot manipulate your life, and the rest of your life belongs to you. After that, if you have caused harm to your children, please bravely say, "I'm sorry." You might feel ashamed, but shame is a sign of weakness and fear that an apology could undermine your authority. You need to know that even as children, they can bravely apologize, and they will respect you more when you can frankly admit your mistakes. A positive and sincere apology is one of the most powerful actions to break the cycle of family toxicity. In fact, when you apologize to your child, you are also teaching them to trust their own feelings and perceptions. You are also showing them that even parents can make mistakes and that you are willing to take responsibility for them. By apologizing, you can become a role model for your children and earn their deep respect. You must believe that when you save yourself from the toxins your parents left behind, you are also saving your children and future generations. This is the sole power to change your own future and life. This has been the core content of this book. We often spend our lives waiting for an apology from our parents, just as they might wait for a thank you from us, but sadly, most never receive it. However, I believe that through reading this book and exploring related works, you will be ready for the light of awareness to illuminate your soul. The darkness can be dispelled. It will guide you out of all the terrible things brought by a toxic family, like excising a late-stage cancer. Find it, confront it, remove it, so you can open the door of your heart, so the child within you is no longer afraid, so that the courage to acknowledge sparks a strong inner self within you. Thank you for listening. If you found this useful, please share it with those who need it.